Rain pelted the cracked pavement as Maya stood beneath a flickering streetlight, clutching an old suitcase that carried the last fragments of a life she no longer recognized. The night air was heavy with the scent of wet asphalt, yet it could not drown the ache in her chest. She had always dreamed of belonging, of being loved, but when the weight of poverty grew too heavy, her family had turned their backs on her. One by one, the people she trusted most slipped away, leaving her to navigate a world that suddenly felt vast, cold, and merciless. With no roof to shelter under and no coin left in her pocket, Maya felt cornered by life itself. Her fingers trembled as she held on to the handle of her suitcase, the metal biting into her skin. She thought of the nights she had gone to bed hungry, of the mornings she woke to silence instead of comfort. Survival had become her only prayer. Tonight, staring at the endless city lights, she made the decision that shattered her heart the most. She would sell her first night. Not out of desire, not out of greed, but out of desperation to find one more reason to keep living. The thought tore through her, leaving her soul raw. She felt shame, fear, and a deep grief that seemed to burn hotter than the rain soaking her clothes. But beneath it all, a tiny flicker of hope remained, that maybe, just maybe, someone would see her worth before the world consumed her completely. In the heart of the city, where glass towers pierced the sky and wealth glimmered like another universe, Ethan sat alone in his corner office. The clock ticked past midnight, its echo mingling with the hum of the city below. He was a man who owned everything yet felt nothing, a CEO known for his unshakable discipline, his cold precision, his refusal to be moved by anyone or anything. His world was contracts, numbers, and silence. When Maya walked in, drenched from the storm, clutching her courage as if it were the last thing she owned, Ethan's sharp eyes lifted from his desk. At first, he thought she was like all the others who had stood before him, people drawn to his wealth, willing to trade anything for a piece of his world. But this girl was different. Her voice cracked when she spoke, and her hands trembled not with greed but with fear. Her offer was simple and brutal, her first night, in exchange for enough money to survive. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had seen desperation before, but this felt different. There was no deception in her eyes, only raw honesty, the kind that stripped away pride and left a person exposed. For a moment, the room grew unbearably still. He should have dismissed her, sent her away, and continued with his life. Instead, he felt something he had not felt in years, curiosity, and perhaps, a trace of compassion. Against every instinct he had honed in his empire, he told her yes. But not for the reason she believed. Maya braced herself as the silence thickened around them, her heart pounding with the weight of what she had offered. She expected coldness, perhaps mockery, or the swift claim of what she had promised. But instead, Ethan rose from behind his desk and crossed the room without a word. His footsteps echoed in the vastness of the office until he stood before her. For a moment, Maya could not meet his gaze, afraid of what she might see there. But when she finally lifted her eyes, she found no hunger, no cruelty, only something startlingly human. Without touching her, Ethan draped a soft blanket over her shoulders. The gesture was so unexpected that it shattered the fragile wall she had built inside herself. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of someone who rarely wasted words. Then he pushed a plate of food across the polished table toward her. The warmth of it, the smell of something simple and nourishing, struck her harder than any insult could have. Maya's chest tightened as tears spilled freely, her body shaking with the release of years of silent suffering. No one had ever chosen to give instead of take. No one had ever seen her as a human being worth saving. Ethan, once a man she believed could only embody power and indifference, had chosen compassion. In that moment, both of their worlds shifted, his built on wealth, hers on survival, bridged by the quiet, disarming power of kindness. Days slipped into weeks, and what began as a night of despair slowly blossomed into something Maya had never dared to imagine. Ethan never spoke of her broken offer again. Instead, he gave her space, small acts of care, and opportunities she had long been denied. He insisted she eat proper meals, gave her books, and encouraged her to study. At first, Maya resisted, wary of kindness she couldn't explain. But little by little, the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. Ethan watched as the timid girl who once stared at the floor now lifted her gaze with quiet determination. He introduced her to people who saw her talent for art and writing, skills she had hidden in the shadows of survival. He challenged her to speak her thoughts, to believe they mattered, and when she faltered, he stood steady beside her, never once letting her feel small. In return, Maya brought a light into his life that no amount of money had ever purchased. She laughed at his seriousness, asked questions he had long forgotten to ask himself, and filled his cold mansion with warmth he didn't realize he missed. The hardened CEO who once measured life in profits found himself waiting for the sound of her voice, realizing that in helping her find her worth, he was rediscovering his own. Maya was no longer the abandoned girl clutching a suitcase in the rain. She was becoming a woman who stood tall, her spirit alive, her dignity unshakable. The night of the charity gala shimmered with elegance, chandeliers casting golden light across a sea of silk gowns and tailored suits. Among the crowd, Maya stood at Ethan's side, radiant in a simple dress that carried her grace more than any jewel could. Conversations paused when people noticed her, not because of the wealth surrounding her, but because of the quiet confidence she carried. She no longer looked like a girl who had once been broken, she looked like someone who had fought her way back to life. When a guest, curious and kind, asked how she had come so far, Maya didn't hesitate. She smiled, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "One act of compassion can change a life," she said softly. "Sometimes, it can even save it." The words lingered in the air, silencing the chatter of the room, as though every soul present felt the truth in them. Ethan, standing beside her, looked at her with quiet pride, realizing she had given him something greater than love, she had reminded him of humanity itself. The man who once defined himself by power now understood the strength of mercy, and the girl who had once begged for survival now embodied hope. As applause rippled through the hall, Maya's eyes glistened. For the first time, she believed in her own worth, and for the first time, Ethan believed that even the hardest of hearts could be healed. Together, they stood not as savior and saved, but as proof that kindness can turn even the darkest night into the brightest dawn.